Hello. The story I want to tell you today took place in Saitama Prefecture, Japan. Saitama Prefecture is a prefecture located in the southeast of Japan, within the Greater Tokyo metropolitan area. In the southeast of Saitama Prefecture, there is a city called Misato, about 20 kilometers from Tokyo, and has an area of 30,000 square kilometers. And today's story takes place here. The main character of the story is Junko Furuta. Born January 18, 1971. At the time of the story, she was only 17 years old and was a student at Yashio Minami High School. In Saitama Prefecture, she had a cheerful personality and a sweet appearance, and was loved by many students at school. Her father was a business director at a canned goods factory, and her mother was a housewife. Besides her parents, she also had an older brother and a younger brother. The family was not well off. The father was the sole breadwinner. To reduce the burden on her father, Junko decided to work. After graduating high school, besides studying at school, she also worked as a sales clerk in a household goods store, or did packaging work in a factory to help support her family. As graduation approached, she applied for an interview at a company and successfully passed the selection. After graduating, she could start working at the company. It was like a new journey in her life. However, no one could have imagined that one day on her way home from part-time work, she would encounter a devil. And what happened afterward made anyone who heard it feel heartbroken. So what exactly happened that day? Next, let us turn back time to November 25, 1988. November 25, 1988 was a beautiful Friday. As usual after school, went to her part-time job at a plastic factory. 2020. Junko finished work and started heading home. She picked up her bag and rode her bicycle toward home. There were only a few streetlights along the road, and almost no pedestrians. Suddenly, a strange man on a motorcycle came up from behind and kicked her hard, causing both her and the bike to fall to the ground. Before she could react, the man on the motorcycle quickly fled. As she tried to get up, a young man came to help her and said that man was from the underworld. He had been following her. He also added that the man might come back to harm her, which would be very dangerous, and that he could escort her home safely. Junko had just fallen and was still dizzy. She didn't understand what had happened, but she felt that the young man in front of her was kind. So she pushed her bicycle and limped along behind him. After walking for a while to a secluded place, he stopped and told her that he was also a member of a gang, and the man on the motorcycle earlier was his accomplice. His name was Hiroshi Miyano, 18 years old and currently not attending school. He then attacked her and said if she agreed to spend the night with him, he would let her go. Otherwise, she would die. In the end, out of fear, Junko agreed to his demand. 2150. Hiroshi took her to a nearby hotel and assaulted her. However, afterward, he did not keep his promise to let her go home. Instead, a more sinister idea emerged. He contacted 3 other accomplices to gather at a park. They were Joe Ogura, Yasushi Watanabe, who was also the one riding the motorcycle earlier. 3 o'clock. The 3 young men waited in a car at the park. Not long after, Hiroshi brought Junko there. The 4 searched her bag and found a diary with her home address inside. They threatened to go to her house and kill her entire family if she tried to escape. Junko was terrified, thinking they might really do it. So she had no choice but to obey them. After discussing, the group decided to take her to Shinji's house. His house was in Ayase, Adaki, Tokyo. Shinji's house was a 2-story building with a utility pole outside. He often climbed up using the pole to enter his 2nd floor room. His family had 4 members. Besides his parents, he had an older brother. His parents lived on the 1st floor, while he and his brother lived on the 2nd. Early that morning, they brought Junko to the bedroom upstairs and detained her. At that time, Shinji's father was traveling. Only his mother and brother were at home. At first they were worried that she might cause trouble, so they treated her quite carefully. And Junko thought that they would eventually let her go. So she did not attempt to escape by force. That day, Hiroshi worried that her parents would report to the police after not finding her. So he forced her to call home and say that she hadn't been feeling well lately and was staying at a friend's house. She needed some personal space and asked them not to worry. Over the phone, her parents did not notice anything unusual. They thought she was staying at a friend's house, so they did not report it to the police. 2 days later, on November 28th, the 4 of them felt bored, so they wanted something more entertaining. So they called 2 more friends to the house to join the fun. Because the noise upstairs was too loud, it attracted the attention of Shinji's father, who had just returned from his trip. When questioned, Shinji said that Junko was his new girlfriend and asked him not to interfere. After that, all 6 men assaulted her together. Out of fear, Junko endured it, which made the group very satisfied. In the following days, she was continuously abused by them. One day when Shinji's mother went upstairs to clean, she accidentally saw Junko there. She knew her son had brought a girl home before, but didn't expect her to still be there. So she told Junko to go home quickly. However, a few days later, she still saw Junko upstairs and again told her to go home. After that, she ignored it and did not question her son. At that time, it was December. The weather outside was very cold. The 4 young men often gathered at Shinji's house for fun. They forced Junko to take off her clothes and dance to the music. Even, they made her stand naked outside on the 2nd floor balcony, which caused her to faint from the cold. After that, she continued to endure their outrageous demands beyond description. To prevent her parents from calling the police, Hiroshi occasionally forced her to call home. so her parents wouldn't worry. Seeing her obedient behavior, they tormented her even more. When tired, one of the four would stay to watch over her, while the others went out to get food, and continued abusing her when they returned. Hiroshi even used a camera to record those moments and forced her to watch. One day, Hiroshi lied to her that her father had suddenly died in a traffic accident. Seeing her sadness, he mocked her and said it was just a joke. The group continued using similar lies to torment her emotionally. During that time, one member tried to find a way to let her go, but was discovered and warned by the group. After that, they continued abusing her. At that point, she could no longer endure and cried for help. Shinji's parents downstairs heard the noise, but did not intervene because they were afraid of the group. By December 7, 1988, the 13th day of captivity, the 6 men fell asleep from exhaustion. During that time, she had suffered immense pain, both mentally and physically. But she still managed to put on clothes and go downstairs to find the phone and call the police. But before she could fully explain the situation, Hiroshi was already behind her. He became furious at her actions. He immediately hung up and dragged her back upstairs. Then he called back and said it was just a prank by friends. After that, he ran upstairs, poured gasoline on her legs, and set them on fire as punishment. As a result, her legs were burned and she could not walk. The others saw this and followed, burning other parts of her body. Her wounds began to fester and smelled due to lack of treatment. Shinji's parents realized something was wrong, but were afraid of the group, so they chose to ignore it. Shinji's older brother also lived upstairs and knew about her situation, but out of fear, he did not report it, only occasionally bringing her milk, bread, and other food. Junko could not walk due to her burns. Eventually, she had to lie on the floor and relieve herself there. Some of the 6 men treated the room as a hangout place, and what she did made them extremely uncomfortable. They even forced her to eat her own waste. Gradually, they gave her less and less food, sometimes only a carton of milk per day, a few pieces of bread, sometimes nothing at all. Hiroshi even beat her for urinating on the floor. They repeatedly struck her face, causing it to swell and deform. They took pleasure in it. At that time, she was near death. To them, she was just an object for their gratification. But now she was filthy and could no longer satisfy them. However, they had no intention of letting her go, because they would be arrested. Then an even more sinister plan formed in their minds. On the 41st day of captivity, 6:30, Hiroshi came to Shinji's house angrily. He had lost over 100,000 yen gambling the night before and felt frustrated when he saw her lying on the dirty floor. He vented his anger on her again. At that time, her consciousness was fading. She could barely make any sound. Her feet could no longer move due to severe damage, leaving her completely helpless. Even after attacking her, he was not satisfied. He grabbed a heavy metal object with a 1.7 kilogram iron bar attached. They repeatedly used it to strike her for 2 hours. The next morning, January 5th, they discovered that she had died. They had already prepared for such a situation. Hiroshi went to get a truck from his former workplace and stole some sand, cement, and bricks from a nearby construction materials store. In addition, he also stole an iron drum with a diameter of 60 centimeters and a height of 90 centimeters from a construction site. First, they wrapped her in a blanket and put her into a suitcase. Then they drove the suitcase to an empty lot and placed her into the iron drum. Hiroshi was someone who strongly believed in the supernatural. He was afraid that Junko would turn into a ghost and come back to take revenge. So, he placed an extra videotape inside the drum. Inside was a Japanese TV drama called Dragonfly. This was a television series that Junko liked the most. During the time she was held captive, Junko often mentioned this show. After that, the group mixed cement and poured it into the drum, finally sealing it tightly with tape. 20 o'clock. The group drove to Tokyo Bay and intended to throw the drum into the sea, but due to traffic congestion, they were afraid of being checked by traffic police. So they changed direction and went to Wakasu Seaside Park, near Tokyo Bay, then dumped the drum onto a grassy roadside area. To destroy evidence, they thoroughly cleaned the vehicle and finally returned to Shinji's house and destroyed everything related to Junko. Until January 23, 1989, 98 days after Junko died, Hiroshi and Ogura were arrested by the police for previously assaulting another girl. At first, they thought the police had found Junko's body, so they revealed some details about her. Only later did they realize they were arrested for another case. Both of them then admitted their crimes in the case being investigated and were detained at a juvenile detention center in Arima District, Tokyo. Based on their testimony, the police became suspicious and believed that they might be involved in another case. So they conducted searches of their residences. March 29, 1989. 2 months after Junko died, 2 investigators arrived at Hiroshi's house and found some women's underwear. Therefore, they believed he was involved in other incidents. Immediately after, the police interrogated Hiroshi and Ogura separately. During the interrogation, Hiroshi thought that Ogura had already told them about Junko's death, so he directly confessed and told the whole story. The next day, March 30, 1989, the case was officially investigated. Based on the location provided by Hiroshi, the police found a drum containing a body. Junko was found in a decomposed state, unrecognizable. Finally, the police confirmed her identity through fingerprint comparison. The forensic examination showed that her face was disfigured. Most of her teeth were broken. Her chest had many punctures and internal organs were ruptured. Her hair was torn out, leaving only the scalp. Her uterus was damaged and deformed by foreign objects. Some glass fragments were also found inside. She was pregnant. through the call location Junko used to contact her parents. The police traced it to Shinji's house and successfully arrested the group, including Shinji's older brother. Thus, a group of 7 people was put on trial. Among the original for Hiroshi was the main perpetrator. All of them were between 16 and 18 years old. This was an extremely serious case of juvenile crime. After that, the police further investigated their backgrounds and found that the suspect, Hiroshi, 18 years old, his father was a stock company director, and his mother was a piano teacher. His family background was relatively well off. Because his parents were busy, he was raised by his grandmother from a young age. After finishing elementary school, he returned to live with his parents. Because he lacked parental care when young, his relationship with his parents was not good. To compensate for that relationship, his parents overlooked his mistakes and tried their best to satisfy his material and financial needs. In high school, he enrolled in the 0 class and learned some fighting skills, which he often used to bully other classmates. March 1988. Hiroshi dropped out of high school and got involved with delinquent groups. After seeing that, his family asked him to stay away from those people and forced him to work at a construction materials company. But he completely ignored those arrangements. During a prolonged argument, he even hit his mother. His father discovered this and immediately kicked him out. After that, he gathered a group of delinquent dropouts and formed an organization called the Extreme Youth Association. He became the leader of the gang and lived by extortion and robbery. The suspect, Joe Ogura, 17 years old, was Hiroshi's subordinate. His father was a transport worker. His mother worked in a hotel. His parents divorced when he was in 3rd grade. After that, he lived with his mother. In high school, he met Hiroshi and quickly dropped out, then joined the organization founded by Hiroshi. The suspect, Shinji Minato, 16 years old. His father was a hospital administrator. His mother was a nurse. At home, his parents often argued. After each argument, his father would vent his anger on him and his brother. Growing up in such an environment made his temperament increasingly irritable, and he often attacked classmates. One day, Shinji's brother had his motorbike stolen. To get it back, he asked Hiroshi for help. The two gradually became close friends. Sometimes, to avoid being beaten by his father, he invited Hiroshi's group over to hang out. Shinji's father was very uncomfortable with that group, but did not dare do anything. Over time, the father ignored Shinji. His mother was also helpless and did not intervene much. Yasushi Watanabe, 17 years old. His parents divorced when he was young. He lived with his mother and older sister. His mother worked at a beauty salon and was often very busy with work. After entering middle school, Hiroshi pursued Yasushi's older sister, and that was how they got to know each other. After it was confirmed that Junko had passed away, her family held a funeral for her. One of her classmates wrote a condolence letter saying, "I never expected that we would meet you under such circumstances. You must have gone through so much hardship. We will never forget you. The principal awarded you your diploma. We graduated together. Everyone will always be by your side. I hope you will no longer have to endure such suffering. Please rest in peace." Normally, cases involving juveniles in Japan are handled by juvenile courts. But because this case was so severe, it was transferred to the Tokyo District Court for trial. The prosecution filed charges against the four of them for unlawful confinement, intentional murder, and disposal of a body on July 31, 1989. The case officially went to trial at the Tokyo District Court. The prosecution argued that although the four were minors, given the severity of their actions, they should be sentenced as adults. This was a major crime, and extremely horrifying, unprecedented in Japanese history. The motive of the defendants was arbitrary. As for the victim, she suffered abuse that ordinary people could not even imagine. At trial, although the four defendants pleaded guilty, their defense lawyers argued that they were minors and had no intention to kill Junko. They only continued to assault her, rather than intentionally murdering her. On May 21, 1990, after 10 long months of trial proceedings, the case concluded. Hiroshi was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Ogura was sentenced to 5 to 15 years. Shinji was sentenced to 4 to 6 years. Yasushi was sentenced to 3 to 4 years. 3 other accomplices were also sent to juvenile detention centers for rehabilitation. The prosecution later rejected the verdict and argued that the sentences were too lenient. They then appealed to the Tokyo High Court. On July 12, 1991, the Tokyo High Court issued its ruling. Except for Ogura, whose sentence remained the same, the other 3 had their sentences increased. Hiroshi was sentenced to 25 years. Shinji was sentenced to 5 to 9 years. Yasushi was sentenced to 5 to 7 years. However, the prosecution was still not satisfied with the ruling. The Tokyo High Court explained that under Japanese law at the time, the perpetrators were all minors, and thus were given leniency. After the verdict, the parents of the 4 defendants hoped they and their children could kneel and apologize to Junko's family, asking for forgiveness, but they were refused. Under a civil court order, Hiroshi's mother sold her house for 50 million yen, about 8.2 billion Vietnamese dongs at current value, to compensate Junko's family through a lawyer. Ogura's father sent a large portion of his income to a bank account managed by a lawyer. Shinji's parents also knew about the incident, but were not criminally charged. Junko's family was dissatisfied, so they filed a civil lawsuit against Shinji's parents, and Shinji's parents were also required to pay compensation. Yasushi, one of the 4, was released after serving his sentence. Due to frequent bullying in prison, he developed social anxiety. After release, he became timid and stayed at home. Shinji was released after serving his sentence. He left Masato City with his family, but couldn't find a job. August 2018, he was arrested again for assault and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Ogura was released after serving his sentence. After release, he changed his name to Joe Kamasaka and soon got married. In 2003, he was arrested again for another crime and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Hiroshi was paroled and changed his name to Yokozama Hiroshi. After release, in 2013 he was arrested again for fraud. This case is one of the most horrifying in the history of juvenile crime. In Japan, the 4 perpetrators committed the crime as minors and reoffended after their release. Even before sentencing, they had sworn never to commit crimes again. Right after the case was revealed, Japanese society was filled with legal debates about juvenile crime. Some argued that the minimum age of criminal responsibility should be revised. Through this case, it can be seen that juvenile crime is closely related to family education. If such behavior had been stopped earlier, perhaps such a tragedy would not have happened. Although many decades have passed, this is certainly one of the most haunting cases in Japanese criminal history. Today's video ends here. See you again in the next videos. Goodbye.